Welcome to the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, your window into the world of diplomacy and international affairs. I'm Danial Rahman. With us today is Her Excellency Danielle Heinecke, High Commissioner of Australia to Malaysia. Today we'll be discussing how Malaysia and Australia are working together as close partners in a rapidly changing Indo-Pacific and what that means for the region's future. Welcome, Your Excellency, to the show.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Great to be here today.
Yeah, nice to have you with us when Daniel meets Danielle. Excellency, if I may start, this year marks the 70th anniversary of Australia-Malaysia relations, and that is on the back of Mr. Anthony Albanese's recent election victory. Just a few days ago, there was the inauguration and the appointment of a new cabinet. Perhaps you could share with us how this moment of continuity and commemoration, what does it mean for the bilateral ties and relationship between Malaysia and Australia?
Well, thank you, Daniel, and thanks for highlighting the 70 years. 70 years is really important. We were one of the first partners here. We were one of the first to recognise Malaysia and set up an office here, help with the Constitution, and it's really important at 70 years that we celebrate everything that we've achieved together. And a lot of that is around education, people-to-people links, our security and defence relationship, trade. We're top 10 trade partners with each other, very important to each other's economy.
Number 8, if I'm not mistaken. Number 8, trade partners, if I'm not mistaken.
Top 10 two-way.
Right, two-ways.
And number 11, actually, investment partner. We're really proud, actually, sort of going forward. It's really important that we together focus on the future. We're both medium-sized countries in the region. We're both maritime nations. We both have a really important stake in international trade and the rules continuing into the future. So for us, I think focusing on the new sectors like renewable energy, tech, and how we bring our education relationship and our education partnerships together to help Malaysia and Australia together benefit from those opportunities. And that's what we're really focused on going to the future, is really increasing trade and investment down the track.
Fantastic. And of course, Prime Minister Albanese's recent trip, first trip abroad was to Australia. I mean, for those of you in Malaysia, we're wondering when might that take place, and how do you see the trip, however, and its impact on the wider ASEAN region?
So Prime Minister Albanese has just been in Indonesia. It was his first trip abroad, and he will be coming here to Malaysia. It's ASEAN here, of course, this year, and there'll be hopefully another number of visitors from Australia coming here to celebrate, but also to work out what kind of partnerships we can have into the future. I think for us, as I said before, a lot of it will be around focusing on our people-to-people education, defence and security links, and how can we make those stronger together. We do a lot together. I think around 72,000 Australians have served and trained here in the defence area. Amazing. We've got over 300,000 alumni from Malaysia. It's actually probably a lot more than that. We're still trying to get all the data together for that. Right. But we're also increasingly bringing a lot of Australians back here to Malaysia. We've got the new Colombo plan, and if those of you that have a look at my Facebook and Twitter can see, we've got some really good profiles up there of Australians that are coming up here, studying at your universities, learning Bahasa Melayu, and working in your companies on internships. And we really want to increase those two-way links together.
So let's talk about, so lots of things there, right? There's defense, it's people-to-people, education. But I'd like to start with trade because, we mentioned that we are top 10 trade partners both ways. And I've been made to understand that there are always trade visitors coming. Yes. Some of your previous speeches, you very passionately speak about the opportunities in sustainability, green economy, infrastructure, and digital trade. Now, how are both countries working together in this space? What's coming up that's interesting for the viewers to know about?
Well, thanks, Daniel. So when the Albanese government invested last year at the 50th anniversary of ASEAN in Melbourne, part of that was to really increase the awareness by Australian businesses in the region and the opportunities. And you've outlined some of the key sectors that are going to be important for Malaysia and Australia together. As part of that, we're bringing trade and investment missions up to Malaysia and other parts of Southeast Asia. This year we'll be running a mission around Energy Asia here in KL, but also really trying to take advantage of the Singapore-Johor Special Economic Zone. So we'll be running a mission on investment into the zone in June as well. Last year we ran one around decarbonisation, focusing particularly on PTP and some of the work we're doing with the port down in Johor. but also increasingly we're working a lot with Sarawak and other places that are really trying to take advantage of the renewable energy transition. So there are a lot of opportunities. We're seeing tech as a really important part as well of Malaysia's journey, and we know Madani and the high income aspirations of Malaysia, and how can we support that together. We had a tech mission in October last year that brought around 45 companies up here, and we're actually number 4 now digital tech investor into Malaysia, and we want to continue that journey together.
Well, I used to work for an Australian-based education technology company, so I'm quite familiar with the innovativeness of the Australian industry. On the point on trade, of course, now the big thing are the tariffs and trade barriers, and of course, especially with the US and what we see happening. What are your thoughts on how or whether these trade tariffs, barriers might impact the relationship between Malaysia and Australia, or do you think we're quite insulated or protected from that? Or perhaps is there a call for what we need to do better between our two countries vis-a-vis this?
Thanks, Daniel. I think Malaysia and Australia have got a lot of similarities. We've got a lot of common interests, and it's really important that we work together, and we are doing that. We're having a lot of conversations, I think, with Malaysia at the moment about how we work together. We've actually got 4 trade agreements together that we're part of: RCEP, CPTPP, our MAFTA, which is our bilateral agreement, and also ANZFTA, which is ASEAN, Australia and New Zealand, and that one's just been upgraded recently to include digital economy. So there's a lot that we can do together through those trade agreements, but I think what's really important is that we're focused on international rules of the game, and how do we make sure that we're working collaboratively and try and grow the opportunities that we are together: renewables, tech, health. We're doing a lot together in health. I want to also quickly mention, because I didn't get an opportunity before, how well Malaysian companies are doing in Australia. We're very open to investment, and we've got quite a lot of Malaysian companies that are investing into Australia and doing really well. Gentari is running a lot of renewable energy projects in Australia, and they're using that and hopefully bringing it back here to Malaysia from their experience in Australia. Gamuda is doing a lot of really great high-tech transport into Australia, and that's great. That's actually taking advantage of a lot of our education links with Malaysians who studied in Australia, Australian universities, now working for Malaysian companies in Australia. So I think they're the sorts of things that we've got opportunities for together.
Oh, fantastic. And that moves me nicely to the next bit, which I'd like to talk about, which is education. Scouring through your X account, which I think is filled with a lot of very interesting information. There have been events with the University of Wollongong and many others. And as you mentioned earlier, Australia remains a top destination for Malaysian students, 300,000 alumni and counting. So for the alumni out there, please come and reveal yourself. I'm sure there's a lot of upsides to it. So how is Australia strengthening its education partnerships in Malaysia, especially in areas like research, joint programs, or even TVET?
Thanks, Daniel. So I think many of you know we have 4 universities that have set up campuses, which is actually the highest anywhere in the world. Yep. So Monash was one of the first. Yeah, that's right. And then, of course, we had Curtin, which was next in Miri, Swinburne, which is based in Kuching, and now we have the University of Wollongong, which is the newest, who has a campus in Batu Kawan, Penang, and in Shah Alam. Mm-hmm. So between that, we have about 13,000 Malaysian students, but international students, have Malaysian students studying at those campuses. And that's growing. I think the demand is really there and growing. In Australia, we have around 20,000 Malaysian students at the moment, and they're studying both in universities across Australia, but also in vocational education. So we have many studying in TVET, and that's really important because it is creating pathways, but also important to come back. It's not all one way. It's really important that we're coming back, and I think we're really seeing that movement between both countries.
And on TVET, I'd just like to talk about that a little bit more, because it's an area of interest for me. I know the Australian government invests in sending academics to Australia to look at your TAFE program, which is quite globally renowned. What are the impacts that you may have seen in the past few years? And where do you see this going? Because TVET is obviously very important for Malaysia to bring us from middle income to high income, especially in high value TVET spaces.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in Malaysia in how they learn from Australia's system. No system's perfect, but I think what we've really tried to get right in Australia is how do you work with industry to create a curriculum that creates jobs and creates opportunities for people to go to do study and work at the same time, our apprenticeship model that we have around a lot of the trades.
Right.
And I think that's what's interesting you mentioned a program that we run every year, a program that sends people from relevant tech TVET here to different states in Australia to have a look at how that works and then to bring back some of those lessons and policies here. And I think over time, hopefully that will bring much more of that industry model into TVET as well as universities to get much more of a link with industry. So that's what hopefully we can contribute to as Malaysia starts to develop further, how it wants to develop its TVET system.
Nice. The relationship between our educational institutions and Malaysians going there, I mean, there's often a lot of talk about opportunities, visa, work opportunities. Could you share with us some of what's the latest in that space in terms of student mobility, but also work opportunities?
Thanks, Daniel. So one thing I really wanted to highlight is we have a working holiday maker program. It's reciprocal, actually. Australians can come here and work on a working holiday maker visa, and Malaysians can go to Australia. And this is targeted to the 18 to 30-year-olds. And there's actually 1,100 places available to Malaysians every year.
Right.
It's often undersubscribed.
Right.
And it basically allows you to work and holiday at the same time.
Interesting.
And you can renew it after a year. So I think if we can really promote that, we can actually increase our youth population. In the skilled space, of course, there's opportunities, but they're very targeted to particular job shortages in Australia. And of course, Malaysians go to Australia and they study. Some choose to stay, but also it's important that many come back, particularly when they're supported through a government scholarship. We want them to come back and contribute to the development of Malaysia. But I think what we're increasingly seeing is mobility. So I was at a yoga retreat in the Perhentians on the weekend, and it was really interesting. Nearly everybody loved Perhentians.
All right, thank you.
And it was really interesting at that. There was a group of 15 women, and nearly everyone had some kind of connection, including Malaysians working for Australian companies based here, people that studied in Australia, had worked in Australia. It's just really interesting to see how the two-way travel, two-way work, two-way study is actually meaning that people have got opportunities in both countries.
Yeah.
And that's what we really have together that not everybody has. It's a very special asset.
Yeah, it is a special asset. And you know, I just like to ask a little bit about this visa because, well, clearly I'm a little bit above 30, so I wouldn't qualify for it. But what
Me too.
Really no. So what are the areas in which the talent, or at least in Australia, companies are looking for? And not necessarily, like you said, companies that are in Australia themselves, but the companies in Australia that are here in Malaysia. Like, what are the gaps that you often hear your businesses share and that you know, perhaps Malaysia needs to improve in?
It's a really good question. We have quite a lot of big Australian companies that have set up here in Malaysia. So BHP employs about 600 people in Bangsar. So to give you an example, around BHP, they're actually they service globally their operations here from Malaysia and from the Philippines. And they do procurement, finance, HR, all their functions here globally. But what they're doing is digitalising their business. So what they're after is really digital tech. So what we're really encouraging Australian companies to do, and we're also working with Amazon and our universities as well, to try and build up how we do the links to university to make sure that the relevance of the courses is industry ready. And that's what I think we can do with companies taking a role in sponsoring and working together with the universities based here. Not necessarily Australian, it can be anyone that's after a partnership. And I think that's what the demand is, but it's not just in Malaysia. I think that kind of demand for digital skills and problem solving is everywhere.
So it's a local investment, but with very global implications. That was a very interesting and nice conversation about education and training. I think it's very important. I'd like to move on to defense and maritime security, which I notice is something you highlight from time to time in your speeches, online. And recently, I saw that there was the FPDA, the completion of joint drills. I'm made to understand that this started in 1971, so it's been many years now since that relationship has been in place. Could you perhaps, for the interest of the viewers at home, maybe lay out a bit of the history of that and kind of like what we have today with this arrangement?
Sure, thanks, Daniel. So the Five Powers Defence Agreement is between Australia, Singapore, the UK, Malaysia and Singapore. And it really came out of, I guess, earlier events that happened here that Malaysians know well, Konfrontasi and other events. And it was really about the defence of Singapore and Malaysia, your traditional defence partners here. And we came together, and what we actually do at the moment is there's a headquarters in Butterworth. and that's a multi-nation headquarters. They're the secretariat to the countries, and basically we train and exercise together. So you would have seen in the media recently that there was an exercise called Bersama Shield, and that was a.
I thought of that name, Together Shield, Bersama.
I'm not sure. It's I guess we always have Bersama, and
okay. That's nice. Yeah.
So that was a cyber-based activity, looking at different sort of scenarios and how we sort of work together. So we do those exercises all the time. I think there's great demand and interest in how we can grow the FPDA, and I think Australia is really interested in working with all the countries to see what we can do together to make ourselves stronger. Also, it really brings people together. A lot of the exercise is about how we work together with our defence forces, and Australia, as well as FPDA, does around about 13 bilateral exercises a year with Malaysia, and it's great. Our defence forces love coming up here to Malaysia. We've got many based in Penang, at the Guest of Malaysia at Butterworth, and we really do a lot of things together.
Thanks for that. If I may kind of just like take a little slightly different perspective to this. Just a few days ago, the ICAO, International Civil Aviation Authority organization, had announced the outcome of the very tragic MH17, where they found Russia responsible for it. And I saw that your Foreign Minister, Excellency, the Honourable Penny Wong, had come up with a statement talking about reparations, potential outcomes, etc. Now, in light of this decision, and of course the impact that it has done to citizens of Australia and citizens of Malaysia, what kind of dynamics do you see emerging between the Malaysian-Australian relationship when it comes to this, to the decision that we saw a few days ago?
Yes, I think from Australia's perspective, we think the role of international organisations is very important in moderating international issues, disputes, creating standards, creating rules, and in the space of aviation, governing that through an international body is really important. So air safety, the number of people that fly in a plane, it's just really important that we all abide by those rules. So from our perspective, I think the reason that we took the legal case is to try and make sure that those international standards are adhered to, and obviously we're pleased with the outcome, and I acknowledge the statement that Prime Minister Anwar has made. Yeah,
thank you for that. And you're right, Prime Minister Anwar, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, is currently in Russia, and the results came in, the outcome came in around the same time, and he has come up with a statement on it. And I think this moves us nicely about Malaysia, Datuk Sri Anwar, and the ASEAN chairmanship. And currently we are into the 5th month, almost halfway through the ASEAN chairmanship. Time truly flies, with the ASEAN summits coming up in just under 2 weeks from now. Now, what are some of the issues that Australia is paying particular interest to, whether it's humanitarian, security, or peace building? Perhaps you could give us some insights on your priority areas.
Thanks, Daniel. So, number one priority is really to get behind ASEAN. We've always supported, we were one of the first dialogue, I think we were the first dialogue partner 50 years ago, and we've always seen ASEAN as a really important institution. We support ASEAN centrality. We support programming across economic, political and social cultural, and doing that to make ASEAN stronger together is very much in Australia's interest to do that. This year, we work with Malaysia to understand what are their priorities, how would they like Australia to support them, and some of the areas that we'll be working with Malaysia on are some of the areas you listed, but also cyber. Yep. That's an area that Malaysia's expressed an interest in more policy dialogue around ASEAN and how we can work together. On humanitarian space, of course, we know Malaysia's very focused and is doing a great job in leading on Myanmar issues and how we can get behind humanitarian efforts, including through the AHA Centre, to support humanitarian efforts is really important. And of course, in the region we live at the moment, it's really important that we keep dialoguing on issues like conflict prevention. How do we make sure that we work together to de-escalate conflict? Everybody's lived through that before, especially here in Malaysia, and we want to avoid that in future. So I think from Australia's perspective, a dialogue is important, understanding each other is important, and for us, we are part of the region here. And we want to work and understand our ASEAN partners as well as we can. So ASEAN is always something that Australia will put a lot of effort into.
One of the key threats facing ASEAN currently is, of course, climate change. And Australia is known for its advancements in innovation, hydrogen, among other things, green standards. I remember listening to your speech once about it. Now, if you may share with us, where do you see, what can Australia do or is currently doing to offer Malaysia technical expertise in addressing climate change, even within the ASEAN region, on this topic?
Thanks, Daniel. So this is one of the areas that we think we've got a lot, not just to share with Malaysia, but I think to learn together. So Australia at the moment is around about 40% of our electricity is generated from renewables. In some states like Tasmania, where we have high hydrogen, it's already at 100%.
Oh, wow.
South Australia will get there in 27 through a combination of different types of energy sources. But our objective, the government's objective, is to get to 82% by 2030. So that's why there is a lot of different alternative types of energy that are being explored. But there are things we're doing here with Malaysia at the moment where there's demand from Malaysia. So we're working, as I mentioned before, with Sarawak, particularly around their own journey, looking at battery storage, looking at the efficiency of different systems, and that's something that we can do in other states if there's demand and if that's something that the national government wants us to do. We're also working on some joint research in this area around tropical batteries. We have a large part of Australia is tropical, like Malaysia. We can learn a lot. How do we make battery storage more efficient, which is going to be important for solar and capturing some of the energy from solar. We're also working on maritime decarbonisation mechanisms, which is going to be really important to maintaining maritime trade and looking at partnerships between Australia and Malaysia, and that means exploring different types of bunkering fuels. So there is a lot of work that we want to do together, and I think there are a lot of investment opportunities that come up, again, two-way, in order to make sure that we're then putting the money behind what some of the R&D and some of the policy objectives are.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, it's such a topic of interest and emerging importance. We don't have much time, but I'd like to ask you very quickly, next year is Malaysia's Visit Malaysia year 2026. What are your thoughts then on what would be of interest to Australians in order to attract them here? Guy Sebastian is one of them. You were very nice to have him at your performance earlier this year. Perhaps if you could comment a little bit on that.
Sure. So, look, I'm going to talk about my favourite things here. I already mentioned the Perhentians. I also would say that just having a look at some of Malaysia's recent figures, 500,000 Australians came to Malaysia last year. So we're actually number 8, I think, in terms of foreign nationals coming to visit Malaysia. And I think that's only going to grow. So when I think about the things that Australians love here, I have to say Perhentians is up there. It's amazing. The snorkelling, the fish.
Right.
One of my favourite things to do in KL is to go for a hike along many of your rivers.
That's right, yeah.
Sungai Pisang in Gombak is actually probably my favourite.
Okay, I've not been there myself then. I should.
Let's go, Daniel.
Let's go.
I really love Ipoh. I'm from a small town myself, so I think getting out into a more regional centre, the caves, the hot springs, the rivers is beautiful. And I love the Kinabatangan River. I recently did a trip out there and saw all your wildlife, and it's very special. But I have to also mention the towers and the restaurants of KL. It's quite an amazing city, and I think definitely on the global map, Australians are definitely in their social media raving about KL. So I think Malaysia's in a really good place.
Yeah, fantastic. We hope to see more Australians coming. Now, we've got about a minute left, and I'd like to get your closing thoughts on having served as a diplomat across various countries. What in your mind stands out about Malaysia? Professionally, culturally, or personally, since your posting began here, and what are your hopes for our two nations' relationship for the future? So
I think for me, the thing that I always am amazed by here is the energy of your private sector. It's boundless. People do not stop working in terms of they've got ideas, they take risks, and they're really good at implementing those. So I think just really harnessing how we can do that together, particularly given our people-to-people links. We can do so much, and Malaysians have energy in business. They're risk takers. So I think that's what's really stood out to me. My postings have actually been all in the region, so Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste and Indonesia. Right. So I think coming to Malaysia, I've really felt that entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah. In terms of what we can do together, it's boundless. But I think for me, if you've got a relationship, you've got trust, and you understand each other, which I think we do, there's so much you can do together. So for me, I really hope that those new sectors, renewables, health, tech, is really where we can build together.
Great. Danielle, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your insights. I think this has been such an interesting conversation, and also your passion, not just for the culture, but also how the business trade opportunities can take shape in the future. So for those of you at home, Australia and Malaysia have long enjoyed strong ties as both countries look towards the future. There's growing potential for even deeper collaboration in the Indo-Pacific. We hope this episode has helped you better understand the evolving partnership between both our nations and its significance. On that note, thank you for tuning in. Until next time on Diplomatic Dispatch.
Thanks, Dave.